Customer onboarding and service delivery, the process documentation nobody talks about. You know, there's this pattern I keep seeing across small businesses, and it's pretty fascinating. A consulting firm will land a new client, and the owner will say something like, "We deliver great work, but every new client feels like we're reinventing the wheel." And it's not just consultants. I hear the same thing from agencies, professional services firms, software companies, across the board. Here's the thing. Most small business owners are absolutely brilliant at what they do. The actual service delivery, top notch. But the process of getting a customer from "yes, I'll hire you" to "wow, that was seamless," that's where things get messy. And I'm not talking a little messy. I'm talking about the kind of chaos that costs you time, money, and honestly, your sanity. So let me share what actually works after spending decades in risk management, operations, and watching businesses either thrive or struggle based on how they handle this stuff. I'm Scott Lindsay, and I have been a Chief Risk Officer, Chief Compliance Officer, Director of Internal Audit, CFO of a publicly traded bank. I founded an internet solutions company that served more than 85 financial institutions and hundreds of thousands of customers. I've analyzed what works, what fails spectacularly, and what quietly drains businesses without them even noticing. And look, if you're finding this valuable already, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. Tell me what part of customer onboarding drives you the most crazy. I read every single one, and honestly, your questions shape what I talk about next. Plus, it helps YouTube show this to more people who need to hear it. Okay, so let's talk about why process documentation for customer onboarding matters so much. And I don't mean some dusty 3-ring binder that sits on a shelf. I mean living, breathing documentation that actually gets used. There's a classic scenario that plays out in growing businesses. A company gets to around 20 or 30 clients, and suddenly they realize they're making different promises to different clients. Not intentionally, you know? But one salesperson says, "Yeah, we can have you up and running in 2 weeks," and another says 4 weeks. Same service, different expectations, and then the delivery team is stuck in the middle, scrambling to figure out what was actually promised. That's the first gotcha with onboarding. Inconsistency kills trust faster than almost anything else. Your customer doesn't know what's happening inside your business. They just know what they were told versus what they're experiencing. And when those don't match, that's when the phone starts ringing. That's when the emails get tense. So the first component of solid onboarding documentation is what I call the promise map. It's not complicated. It's literally documenting what you're telling customers will happen, when it will happen, and who's responsible. But here's where it gets interesting. You've got to map it from their perspective, not yours. Let me give you an example. Take a typical small accounting firm doing tax prep and advisory work. Their internal process might be super efficient. They've got it down. But their clients have no idea what's happening between "I sent you my documents" and "here's your return." There's this black hole of 3 weeks where customers just wonder, are they working on it? Did they get my stuff? Should I follow up? The solution is a simple touchpoint map. Day 1, confirmation email with clear next steps. Day 3, we've reviewed your documents and here's what we need. Day 7, we're in process, here's your timeline. Day 14, we're finalizing. Expect draft by... You see what I'm doing? We're not just documenting the work, we're documenting the communication around the work. Now the second piece, and this is where discipline really comes in, is the handoff documentation. You know what I mean by handoffs? It's when the customer moves from one person or one stage to another. Sales to delivery, initial setup to ongoing support, project kickoff to project completion. Here's the brutal truth. Handoffs are where stuff falls apart. Look at any operational audit at any company, and you know what the root cause of most customer complaints is? Poor handoffs. Information doesn't transfer. Context gets lost. The new person doesn't know what the previous person promised or learned. In financial services, there's this framework called handoff integrity. Sounds fancy, but it's really simple. Every time a customer moves from one team or person to another, there has to be documented transfer of 1. What's been done, 2. What's been promised, 3. What the customer actually said they needed, not what we think they need, but what they articulated, and 4. any quirks or special circumstances. That last one is huge. Consider a technology services company working with a government agency client. The agency has very specific security requirements. The salesperson knows it, documents it in the CRM, but the implementation team doesn't check the CRM thoroughly. They use the standard setup. Now they have to redo the entire thing. Cost, time, money, and credibility. So, in a well-documented handoff process, there's a mandatory field. Client-specific requirements. Can't move forward without it. That's process discipline. It's not sexy, but it saves your butt. The third component is what I call decision documentation. And this is counterintuitive because most people don't think of this as part of onboarding, but stick with me here. During onboarding and initial service delivery, you make tons of little decisions. Should we do it this way or that way for this client? Do they need the advanced feature or the basic one? Should we prioritize speed or thoroughness here? Most businesses make these decisions verbally, in a team meeting, on a quick call, maybe in Slack, and then 6 months later, when something goes sideways, nobody remembers why you chose option A instead of option B. Or worse, a new team member makes a different decision for the same scenario, and now you've got inconsistency again. This becomes critical during compliance audits or customer disputes. Companies get dinged for inconsistent application of policies. And when auditors ask, why did you do it this way here and that way there? There's no documented answer. So here's what works. A simple decision log doesn't have to be formal. Could be a shared document, a section in your project management tool, whatever. But when you make a judgment call during onboarding or service delivery, write it down. What was the decision? Why did you make it? What customer need or business constraint drove it? This does two things. First, it creates consistency over time. Second, it protects you. If a client ever questions why something was done a certain way, you can point to the documented decision and the reasoning. It's not defensive. It's professional. All right, here's where I want to pause and ask you something. If you're still with me, that tells me you're serious about this stuff. And if this is resonating, do me another favor. Hit that like button. I know, everyone asks for it, but it genuinely helps the channel grow. And drop a comment. What's the biggest process gap in your business right now? Is it handoffs, communication, something else? I really want to know because your challenges shape what I cover next. Okay, the fourth component is something I call exception handling protocols. Fancy term for what do we do when things go wrong? Because here's the reality. Things will go wrong. A vendor will miss a deadline. A customer will send incomplete information. A team member will get sick right in the middle of an implementation. Whatever it is, something will not go according to plan. The businesses that thrive aren't the ones where nothing ever goes wrong. That's fantasy. The ones that thrive are the ones that have a documented process for handling exceptions quickly and professionally. Consider customer onboarding at a financial institution. It's typically pretty streamlined, but every once in a while, you get a customer with a complex situation. Maybe they have a trust or international transactions or whatever. And if there's no protocol for escalating and handling those exceptions, they just sit there. The customer gets frustrated, the frontline staff gets stressed, and it spirals. The solution is what's called an exception escalation matrix. Sounds bureaucratic, but it's actually really simple. If X happens, you do Y. If it's outside normal parameters, it goes to this person within this time frame. And critically, the customer gets told, hey, your situation is a bit unique, so here's what's happening next. That transparency is everything. Customers can handle delays or complexity if they understand what's going on. What they can't handle is silence or confusion. Now let me talk about the fifth piece, which is often overlooked, success criteria documentation. This is about defining upfront in writing what done looks like. Here's a common scenario. A small software development shop keeps having conflicts with customers at the end of projects. The customer says, "This isn't what I wanted," and the dev team says, "But this is what you asked for." Both sides are frustrated, and you know what the problem is? They never documented success criteria at the beginning. The solution, at the start of every engagement, have a definition of done session. What does success look like for the customer? What are the must-haves? What are the nice-to-haves? And critically, how will we measure success? Is it speed, accuracy, user adoption, revenue impact? Then document it, not in some legal contract buried in fine print, but in a simple, clear document that both sides sign off on. It becomes the North Star for the entire engagement. Anytime there's a question or a potential scope change, pull up that document and say, okay, based on our agreed success criteria, is this essential or is this a nice to have we can phase in later? This single change can reduce post-delivery conflicts by 70% or more. And here's the thing, it also improves the quality of the work because the team is laser focused on what actually matters to the customer, not what they assume matters. The sixth component, and this one's a bit more operational, is timeline and milestone documentation. And I don't just mean a Gantt chart or a project plan. I mean documentation that shows the customer exactly where they are in the journey and what's coming next. You know that anxiety customers get when they don't know what's happening? That's a risk factor. That's where trust erodes. And trust, once you lose it, is incredibly hard to rebuild. Take the case of technology companies onboarding enterprise clients, big, complex implementations with lots of stakeholders and moving parts. Early in the relationship, they might send the client a big project plan up front and then just go dark while they work. And clients get nervous. They start asking questions, requesting meetings, basically checking up because they don't feel informed. The shift to a milestone communication model changes everything. Every time a milestone is hit, no matter how small, send a quick update. Hey, we completed phase 1. Here's what we did, here's what's next, and here's your updated timeline. Takes 5 minutes to send that email, but the impact on customer confidence is massive. And here's a pro tip. Include the customer in milestone definitions. Don't just tell them what the milestones are, ask them what milestones matter to them. Maybe they don't care about the technical back-end stuff, but they really care about the user training phase. Great, make that a highlighted milestone in your documentation. All right, the seventh component is what I call knowledge transfer documentation. This is especially important if you're delivering a service where the customer needs to do something after you're done. Maybe you're setting up a system they'll operate. Maybe you're creating a process they'll manage. Maybe you're training their team. The businesses that really excel here don't just deliver the thing, they document how to use the thing, how to maintain the thing, and who to contact if something goes sideways with the thing. Too many small businesses deliver excellent work and then just vanish. The customer's left holding something they don't fully understand. And then when they have a question 3 months later, they feel abandoned. So document the knowledge transfer, create simple how-to guides, record training sessions, build an FAQ based on common questions, and make sure it's accessible, not buried in an email from 6 months ago, but in a place the customer can easily find it. In banking operations, these are called runbooks. Every process has a runbook that explains how it works, how to troubleshoot common issues, and who to escalate to if needed. This dramatically reduces the volume of support calls because people can self-serve on the simple stuff. Okay, here's component 8, and this one's about continuous improvement, feedback loop documentation. This is where you systematically capture what went well, what didn't, and what you'd do differently next time. Most small businesses do this informally, if they do it at all. Maybe there's a quick debrief after a project. Maybe someone mentioned something in passing. But if it's not documented, it doesn't become institutional knowledge. You're relying on memory, and memory is unreliable. So after every customer onboarding or service delivery, do a structured retrospective and document it. What surprised us? What took longer than expected? What did the customer love? What frustrated them? What would we change if we did this again tomorrow? Smart companies do this quarterly. Pull the team together, review all the onboardings from that quarter, and identify patterns. Inevitably, you'll find stuff. Oh, we keep running into this same issue with data migration. Or, customers keep asking about this feature we don't explain up front. Those patterns become your roadmap for process improvements. And here's the discipline part. You've got to actually use the feedback to update your documentation. It's not enough to just capture it. If you identify that customers are consistently confused about Step 3, you need to revise your onboarding materials to clarify Step 3. Otherwise, you're just creating a complaint log, not a continuous improvement system. Now, the ninth component is something that might seem minor but is actually critical: version control for your processes. You know how software has version numbers? Your processes need that too. Because here's what happens. You update your onboarding process based on feedback. Great. But if you've got team members using the old version, or if a customer was onboarded using version 2, but you're now on version 4, you end up with confusion and inconsistency. So every time you update your process documentation, mark it with a version number and a date, and make it crystal clear which version is current. Archive the old versions. Don't delete them, because sometimes you need to reference what you were doing 6 months ago, but make sure everyone knows which one to use. This becomes critical during compliance audits. Auditors ask, "Show me the process you were using in March of last year." And if you can't produce that because you just overwrote everything, you've got a problem. Version control solves that. Component 10, and we're getting close to the end here, is role clarity documentation. This is about making sure everyone on your team knows exactly what they're responsible for during onboarding and service delivery. You'd be amazed how often this isn't clear. Someone assumes someone else is handling the client communication. Someone else thinks the tech setup is someone else's job, and stuff falls through the cracks. So document roles explicitly. Not just Sarah handles onboarding, but Sarah handles initial client kickoff call, sends welcome packet, schedules first working session. That level of specificity. And include backup roles. What happens if Sarah's on vacation? Who steps in? Because if that's not documented, people will either scramble to figure it out or they'll just let things slide until Sarah's back. All right, last component, number 11, compliance and risk documentation. Now, depending on your industry, this might be super formal or it might be pretty lightweight. But every business has some level of compliance and risk considerations during onboarding and service delivery. Maybe it's just making sure you've got a signed contract before you start work. Maybe it's verifying the customer's identity for regulatory reasons. Maybe it's documenting that you've explained certain terms or risks to the customer. Whatever it is, document that you've done it and make it part of your checklist. Because if something ever goes wrong, a dispute, a regulatory inquiry, whatever, your documentation is your first line of defense. Businesses get into trouble not because they didn't do the right thing, but because they couldn't prove they did the right thing. Documentation is proof. It's your professional insurance policy. So let me bring this all together because I know we've covered a lot. Customer onboarding and service delivery process documentation isn't about creating bureaucracy. It's about creating consistency, protecting your business, and honestly, making your life easier. When you've got solid documentation, new team members can get up to speed faster. You can scale without everything falling apart. You can deliver a consistent customer experience even as you grow. And when something does go wrong, which it will, you've got a foundation to troubleshoot from instead of just scrambling. And here's the thing, this doesn't have to be perfect on day one. Start with one component. Maybe it's the promise map, or maybe it's handoff documentation because that's where you're bleeding the most right now. Get that documented, get your team using it, then move to the next component. The businesses that succeed aren't the ones with the fanciest systems. They're the ones with the discipline to document, the humility to improve, and the commitment to actually use the processes they create. So here's my challenge to you. Pick one customer onboarding or service delivery process in your business that's causing you pain right now. Just one. And over the next week, document it using the components we talked about. You don't have to do all 11. Just pick the ones that are most relevant to your situation. And then use it. See what works. See what doesn't. Refine it. That's how you build operational excellence, not through some big transformation project, but through small, disciplined improvements over time. If you found this helpful, please subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss future videos. And seriously, drop a comment. Tell me what you're going to document first, or what questions you have, or what topic you want me to tackle next. I'm here to help you build a business that's not just successful, but sustainable and manageable. I'm Scott Lindsay, and I'll see you in the next video. Now go document something.